Something, huh? What was that? Did you hear a noise? What do you mean I did? What was that? Come on, bring it up. Somebody broke something. Get ready in there now. You all set in there? We're not going to let these klutzes have a minute's rest there. Come on now. That's it. Very good. This gets the kids furious when they hear Shepard play his mandolin here. I'm standing there, you see, just minding my own business. Boy, you never know. You really just don't know when you're going to get the truth. No, it's never going to come to you in tracts, I can tell you that. It never comes to you in those long, turgid, parchment-written, graven scrolls. It'll never be handed down in a couple of big, fantastic clay tablets. No, you just never know. I'm standing there, see, in this subway car. And I'm hanging on to the subway strap. And we're rolling along that great old A train in the sky. Oh, have I ever told you the story? Do you know that the subway people have their own legends? Just like seafaring men. Did you ever hear the legend? Seriously, the legend of the flying A train? No, there is a legend among subway men of the flying A train. And you know, when this legend first broke out was around 1910. Let me tell you the story. Do you have a little romantic music in there? Just get me a little romantic music, please. You shall hear the story of the flying A train. It was midwinter. The year was 1910. A cold, bitter year. A year of recrimination. A year of defeat. A year of change. A year of excitement. Over in Europe, the vast storm clouds of war were gathering. And a substitute motorman named Charles McSweeney, who lived down on Houston Street, one night was waiting in a subway station, waiting for a train to take him home from work. He was carrying his lunch bucket. It was late on a cold, stormy night. And above ground, the wind was howling. A rising gale was coming off. The movements of the great waves crashing on the shore of New Jersey, bringing in the smell of the vast Atlantic Ocean. And he sat and picked his teeth. A small sliver of salami had hooked itself in his bicuspids hours before, and he was entertaining himself, fishing for it. He would suck occasionally. It was a dark night, and he was alone in the subway station, in the train station, waiting for his train to take him home to his little love nest. He'd only been married 3 months before on Houston Street. When suddenly he was aware of a slight vibration of the ground. He stood up. He had been sitting on a bench a regular subway station bench. He stood up and straightened his back. Was a little sore from long hours of work. He reached down, picked up his lunchbox, tugged at his cap, rolled up his paper and stuck it in his back pocket, and waited for that great train to come bearing down out of that dark tunnel off to his right. He felt the ground thundering under him, when suddenly, out of the darkness, roared a train, a darkened A train, roared out of the darkness. No light, no lights in the windows, and he looked into the cabin where the pilot stayed, and there was nothing but a blank space. And the train... It was gone. A darkened, empty train had roared along that A line, thundering its way from nowhere to no place. And it was not on the schedule. And since that day, that train has been seen 3 times. 3 separate occasions, a decade removed. And when old trainmen gather at the car barns, old motormen sitting over their beer, they speak of the flying A train. That A train that forever and ever and ever is searching for the love of a good woman. A good woman and never finding. You didn't know that story? Yeah. Well, you never know when you're going to get the truth, see? And I'm standing there in this A train, and I got a hold of the hanging strap, see? I want the other one now. Now, just you get it ready in there, Mario, see? I'm hanging on the old hanging strap, see, and the place is mobbed and packed. It's the holiday season. And the train, you know how the train, when it goes over those little clickety-clickety, we stop, and people get on and people get off, and they're getting packed tighter and tighter. And I'm suddenly aware of a hot breath that's just wafting over about 15 or 20 of us. And it's the hot breath of good old J.B. Scotch. It's drifting down. And standing about 16 people away from me was a man in his cups. And he's reeling back and forth, and he's looking up, and as he looks up, he's reading the car cards. You know those cards that read, "Do you offend?" You know those cards that say, "Does she?" Only her hairdresser knows whether she does or doesn't. And he's hanging there. And by George, right there in front of him, I'll never forget this, the moment of truth. It says, "Help keep New York. Help keep New York plastered." Have you seen that sign? It says, "Keep New York plastered." Razzmatazz and the Rudy tune. Oh, you want to hear the Ballad of the Double E Train? Oh, well, that's nothing, of course. Keeping New York plastered. We're living right in the middle of it, fella. We're all sitting here on the edge of this fantastic Roman swimming pool. The dolphins are disporting themselves. Somewhere off in the distance, the gladiators are belting each other over the head with maces and swords. And we're sitting here stuffing the old grapes in the trap, hollering for more women. More women and stronger wine. Da, 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 da. Here, for example, is a little gift that I'm sure many of you are either about to get or have already gotten for Christmas. The balloon drink detective. Yes, it says, "What's your AQ?" You blow up a balloon. This at a party can be amusing and usually is, but our device has a more serious purpose: to test the amount of alcohol in your system, your alcoholic quotient, as a warning against driving, and just for a fun game. Yes, inflate the tube, let the air filter through the latter, and in a moment you know whether you should stop drinking, have a couple of more, or just go to bed. A thoughtful, meaningful gift for the Christmas shopping or for the holiday period ahead. Stuff that little stocking with the Santa's little friendly gifties here. Can't you just see this guy reeling out there, trying out his Christmas gift? And that goes right along with this one here. I think you might have seen this one. Lights up, friends. Battery-operated beer glass. Yes, new gift idea for creative beer drinkers. Unique 12-ounce glass lights up to add to your pleasure as you knock down the suds. Light turns on and off from base connection. Yes, uses one penlight battery, which is included. Rechargeable. Satisfaction guaranteed. 3 colors available. Just remember, friends, help keep New York plastered. We also have a little gift suggestion here from one of the catalogs. It says, Wine-Making Kit, America's newest hobby. Wonderful for children. They learn chemistry that way. Just let it go into the next cut, Mary. That's all right. They're all the same. Wow! Bring it up there. That's very good. Oh, blow it out, Dad. Wow, 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 wow. You know, speaking of that, always, that business of that whole holiday whoopee world. I remember one time when I'm this kid, see, there was one thing that I was extremely proud of. Keep that cut up. That's a great cut. You just keep that cut, the one you just played there, because I'm going to use that. We're going to need that one. That each one of us as kids, we've all, as when we were kids, we've all had a cross to bear of one type or another. And generally, that cross was related with our parents, or to our parents, or something our parents did in one way or another. And one of it was a mingled cross and blessing. It was very hard to tell. My father, I don't think I've ever told this on the air. I maybe should say this for the limelight some night. But my father, shucks, I don't know whether I ought to tell it. No, I'm leaving myself wide open to all kinds of rotten, jazzy remarks, and I just don't want to do that. People have written me many times that, Shepard, you must have showbiz in your veins. Was there anybody in your family who was in showbiz? Well, no, not exactly. That is officially. But my father was a standard Midwestern type, who, by the way, also was written up. That kind of guy was written up by Sinclair Lewis. He was written up by guys like George Ade. My father was a famous and very, very well recognized life of the party. Yes, he was. I might admit this. And there used to be that phrase, whenever we would go to people's houses, wherever it was, the old man was always, immediately, as soon as the door would open, we'd go into the house, we're going to visit somebody like Bernice and Ernie, that kind of scene. We go in, Bernice, all families, if you come from my kind of family, you then know that your mother and father had a whole group of friends, of which 3 or 4 of them were recognized drunks. Of one kind or another. There was a crying drunk, there was the fighting drunk, and they would sit down, or when they were deciding to have a party, they would decide whether or not to have Clarence, because Clarence is a fighting drunk. Now, if it's a birthday party, we can invite Clarence, because Clarence is, we're not going to have anything, just a little punch. He won't get drunk, and he won't fight then. And we can invite Tom. Of course, Tom cries a lot, but because the party's going to be in the afternoon and the sun is coming in, and it's going to be an afternoon party with a lot of card playing and that, he won't cry. He doesn't cry until it gets around midnight, and they should be home by then. All this kind of stuff, Tom and Clara and all. And the old man, though, was recognized as the life of the party. He really was. If there had been television then, the old man, really, seriously, he would have probably been Soupy Sales. He was that kind of guy, anything for a laugh. Hat, the funny hat on the top. Immediately, he'd run into the house. The door would open, and I was always embarrassed, right away. The door would open, and you hear this whole crowd, whoa, he's here. Oh, what's he going to do? And the old man would say, here I am. He'd whip his hat off, and then he'd start doing his famous snake dance. He was recognized for this dance. He would do a snake dance. Don't ask me what a a snake dance is. That was famous throughout all the people. They'd always say, get old man Shepherd to do a snake dance. Well, he would put a lampshade on his head, so help me, I'm telling you. In fact, he's the only life at the party I ever knew who carried his own lampshade with him. Well, you can't always find a lampshade that fits your head in a house when you're just ad-libbing, and so he carried a lampshade that had a sweatband inside of it. He wore it so much. He even had a chin strap, And had a little fringe hanging, and he'd put this thing on the top of his head, and instantly you'd hear this music. And he's throwing his old hips around, and he had double-jointed shoulders. The only thing I inherited from my father was a pair of double-jointed thumbs. And some night, when I get my big chance on the Ed Sullivan Show, I'm going to throw both my thumbs out of joint. Just like that. Be bigger than the Beatles. The old man would throw his shoulders out of joint, and chung, 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 chung. And the women would go, wow. And the men would holler, go, man, go, wow. Holy smokes, wow. And then he'd grab a chick, and my mother's always watching, with a kind of white look on her face. He'd grab a chick, and he'd swing her around. And he'd pat her, And the lady would always go, oh. That was showbiz in Hammond, Indiana. Yeah, terrible. I don't know why I'm doing this for you tonight. Speaking of the low-down snake. Oh, this is WOR AM and FM New York. Hit the little button there, Mario, please.
Brace yourself for greatness. The book the world could not lay down is now a motion picture. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, starring Richard Burton as Lemus, who never found a man he could trust.
You've broken the bloody agreement, and barring miracles, you've broken my bloody neck, too.
Or a woman, either.
Alec Lemus was your lover, wasn't he?
Yes.
Have you had many lovers, Nancy?
The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. The story of the spy as he really is. A man who knows the dirt as well as the dazzle. Paramount Pictures presents Richard Burton, Claire Bloom, and Oscar Werner in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, a Martin Ritt production.
It's bloody bad. It's premiere tomorrow at the DeMille and Cornet Theater.
Oh, did you get that? Or could you understand it? Well, nobody can understand the English, even the English. Sometimes grow up and never talk to each other for years. All right, hit the little button there. You got another one in there, Dad? There she comes. Sorry. Oh, this is that Beersy one, huh?
Miller High Life in
See this stuff in a purple glass that lights up. All right.
Distinctive Miller High Life in pop and pour cans.
We're getting nuttier by the minute, this world, I'll tell you.
Just pop and pour Miller High Life, the champagne of bottled beer. No opener needed. Enjoy the light, full-flavored goodness of Miller High Life. The premium beer millions more are asking for.
They're yelling for it.
Oh, beer for crying out loud!
Miller High Life always gives you that perfect taste in beer every time. Unequal, unquestioned, unchanging. Enjoy Miller High Life in our easier-to-open pop and pour cans. Just pop and pour Miller High Life. Always sparkling, flavorful, distinctive in pop and pour cans.
Now, you have another one of those little tapies in there? Boy, are we loaded. Well, before we do that, why don't we do the Rover spot here? The Rover 2000. And I again repeat my offer if you'd like to see pictures of this beautiful, magnificently designed English automobile, a Gran Turismo type. Maybe you'll get an idea of just what they mean by Gran Turismo and why this car is possibly one of the best designed automobiles ever put on the mass market. Just send me a card and address it to Rover here. That's me. I'm old Rover here. Send it to Rover, WOR, 1440 Broadway, and we'll send you pictures of this car. And by the way, there will be you're not going to be put on any sales list. None of that jazz. Nobody will come pounding on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we're here for the Rover. You want to take the Rover? No, nobody's going to be hanging you there out to string and dry. If you would like to have these pictures, just send your name and address to Rover, ROVVVER, Rover, WOR, 1440 Broadway. WOR is spelled with an H. And an E. Hit the little button there.
Now, Joseph.
You didn't lay a glove on that, did you?
Marcello Mastroianni against Ursula Andress.
He makes all the movies that come out of Europe.
10th Victim, an unusual comedy about guns, lovers, and the hunt. The game that separates the men from the
makes
boys
28 movies
and
a
makes
week.
them targets for the girls. The 10th
Marcello Mastroianni.
Victim. Marcello Mastroianni as the prey. Who hasn't
Is
got
Marcello
a prey?
Mastroianni really
Ursula Andress as the hunter, who's game for anything.
game for anything?
Murder together. Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress in The 10th Victim, a Carlo Ponti production from Embassy Pictures in color. The 10th Victim, all about things to come and ways to go.
Now playing at Lincoln Art and Lowe's Tower East Theaters. We once again return to the world of reality. Rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Holy smokes, we've got another one. Boy, are we loaded tonight. What is this, Christmas trees, Bill? Oh, I forgot the old electronic workshop. Let's see. No, they're closed now. We better be. We have the electronic workshop on hand, and if you're hearing a lot of funny noises out of your radio, you're either listening to the wrong station, or you should visit the electronic workshop. We don't have funny noises here. These are all artfully contrived noises. What is that? Super regeneration, crying out loud, oscillation in the final stage, everything. We have electronic workshop, and they're at 26 West 8th Street in the village. And if you would like to see their magnificent KLH equipment, they're on hand. By the way, all jesting aside, if you're going to pop this Christmas, or if you already have for hi-fi equipment, I'm sorry for you if you haven't done it at the electronic workshop. But they'll be glad to maintain it for you. And if after a couple of weeks it blows up, they'll trade it in on some stuff. And they'll be there Christmas, too, which ain't the truth of a lot of outfits, you know. This is the Electronic Workshop, 26 West 8th Street, and their number is Gramercy 3014. Oh, okay. Very good. Now, we return once again. You know, that reminds me, I don't know why I'm of course, I have to admit that I planned to tell you this story. I might as well tell it to you. But the idea of the snake dance used to embarrass me when I was a kid. And they would this is the time of the year when kids are already developing that buzz in the ear. You know, that kind of bored, awful feeling because they're going to have to be stuck in bedrooms. And when the big-type people, the parents, are going to the parties, and they stick them in the bedroom and they pile 17 coats on top of you. Fur coats that smell like all kind of powder and perfume and tobacco and stuff and cat fur and everything, and you're laying there underneath all these these coats, and somebody invariably hollers. Usually it's one of the official type ladies. She opens the door, slams it open, and says, "Now go to sleep." And you're laying there, and there's about 28 other kids scattered around. Some of them are stuck under the daybed, and they're piled up on top of the coats like cordwood. And there's whispering and yelling and pinching and stuff. And somebody says, "Shut up and go to sleep, will you, there?" You know, it's the big New Year's party. And they slam the door. And then you hear all this raucous, wild laughter and swilling and bottles falling and people yelling. And in the next room, you hear a lady is being chased into the room by somebody else's husband. You hear a lot of giggling and hollering again. And then you start hearing people telling these, you know, they start telling these stories. And once in a while, somebody hollers out and says, "Shh, the kids can hear." Boy, and how. The kids will really hear it and say, and it's, oh, wow, what a boring time. Well, every time that this would happen, about halfway through the party, I'd hear somebody hollering about the snake dance. And I would be alternately embarrassed because my old man danced the snake dance. Or I would be delighted because my old man was a big smasheroo, socceroo in showbiz. You know, I think all kids whose father are in showbiz feel that way. I've known several children, grown-up types, as a matter of fact, whose father was, you know, big star, big singing star, big musical star. They were both proud of the old man and at the same time embarrassed. it's kind of embarrassing to see the old man up there wearing grease paint, and he's got all little pink cheeks, and he's singing, yes, sir, that's my baby. No, sir, don't mean maybe. Yes, sir, ra-da-da-da-da-da. Somehow, that, it isn't quite right. Well, on one of those particular parties, and I'll have to tell you this story about the great night. It was between Christmas and New Year's. And we got this call. My mother got a call. And we were supposed to go over and visit my Aunt Minn. And the reason we were supposed to go over and visit my Aunt Minn was because my Aunt Minn was celebrating the breaking in of her new, big, fantastic, unbelievable Christmas present. And she didn't tell us what it was. She says, Carl surprised me. I will never forget it. Carl was our drunken uncle. And Uncle Carl never had more than $2 ever to rub together. And whenever he did have $2 to rub together, he rubbed them together down at the Bluebird Tavern. And he kept them there and tried to light a little fire with them. He'd rub the $2 and finally the fire would be lit. It would be lit by drinking 2.5 gallons of Sneaky Pete, which he bought for the $2. And so Uncle Carl was also, like many drunks, a fantastically sentimental type. Primarily because he was always feeling this little sense of I suppose it was connected with conscience. He always felt that somehow he shouldn't be sitting down at the Bluebird for 6 weeks straight, or laying down at the Bluebird for 6 weeks straight, down there among all those feet. He'd be down there. And so every couple of months, Uncle Carl would make a grand gesture, a fantastic gesture. Like he'd take the whole family out one night. All 17 of his kids, he'd take Aunt Minn on this big gesture and buy them all ice cream cones. Just take them out, just like that. Or go down and buy them all chop suey. Take them to a Chinese restaurant. And everyone would know that. Immediately, my Aunt Minn would call up the next day, and the phone would ring. My mother would pick up the phone. She'd say, hello. Oh, hello, Minn. She always expected, there were two kinds of calls we got from Aunt Minn. It was like, oh, hello, Minn. What? No, we haven't seen him. 3 weeks? Oh, I wouldn't worry about it. The last time wasn't the last time 6, 7 weeks like that? Oh, I see, huh? You mean even Charlie hasn't seen them? Well, I wouldn't worry about it. No, he'll be all right, yeah. Uh-huh. Well, okay, if he staggers past here, we'll try and grab him, yeah, on the way past. Yeah, I'll tell all the kids to watch out for him, yeah. He may be under the porch. Yeah, okay. That was that one. Now, that was one call. The other call was, hello. Oh, yes, Minn? Oh, isn't that nice? He did. Really? He bought all the kids ice cream cones? Uh-huh. Oh, isn't that nice? Carl's so wonderful. Yes. Chop suey? Oh, how nice. Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, look, is he home now? I'll put him on. Oh. I see. Uh-huh. Well, don't worry. He'll be home tonight. Uh-huh. Oh, he did, huh? Well, I wouldn't worry about it, uh-huh. Well, that was very nice about the ice cream cone. Uh-huh, yeah. Well, if we see him, we'll send them home. Yes. Well, those were the two calls that we got in our house from the Uncle Carl menage. Well, one one holiday, there was this call. Hello? He did what? Oh. Yes, we'd be glad that, yes. See, my mother had one rule. My father hated like he was out of his mind to go over there. He hated like he was out of his skull to see Aunt Minn. And so there was a standard rule in the house. Do not ever commit yourself to go over to see Aunt Minn unless you check with headquarters, meaning the old man. And so my mother's on, hello, yes, Minn. What? Well, just a minute, I'll see. Yeah, he's down in the basement. And she puts her hand over the mic, over the receiver. She says, hey, Minn wants us to come over tonight. I can't tell her that. Now, come on. Look, it's been over a year, yes. Well, now, look, Carl gave her a surprise, and she wants us to see it. Well, all right, I'll tell her. Yes. Only an hour, all right. Hello, Minn? He says he'd love to. Yes, he's so happy. Yes, he just says he'd love to come over. It's been so long. Yes, uh-huh. All right. Yeah, tonight at 7. Well, if we see him on the street, we'll bring him with us, yes. Okay. All right. He's wearing his blue suit? Okay. All right. Clink. Oh, yes, many's the time we used to see, as kids, we used to just track Uncle Carl around. How many of you as kids, when you were a kid, because this is an urban kid thing, kids in the country go out and track rabbits. You know, that's sure. You know, kids Saturday afternoon, they go looking for rabbits, or they track beavers, I presume, or they track elks, I suppose, or moose, or meese, or whatever it is. They track. When we were kids, we would go out and track drunks. Did you ever do that when you were a kid? It'd be like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it'd be a whole pack of us would go out, and we would just walk around the streets, and all of a sudden you'd see this door slam open on the Bluebird or the Lucky Tiger Inn or something like that. You'd see the Schlitz Restery, you know, boom, the door opens, and stay out, you bum! And this guy would come reeling, and we would trail him down the street. He's weaving, you know, kids, and we would track drunks. And we would compare various great drunks we had tracked, various things they did. Oh, they did wild stuff, you know, doorways, everything. They'd fist fight. They'd be standing. One drunk in particular was our favorite drunk. He used to have a fist fight. Nobody around. There'd be nobody for miles around. And he's squaring off. He's fist fighting. What are you saying? And he'd get hit. Bang! He'd get hit. He'd stagger back. Hit and blow up. You son of a gun. And we'd love it. We'd walk around. It was better than the movies or anything. We were drunk trackers. Well, more than once, the whole pack would be tracking Uncle Carl. Uncle Carl was a singing drunk. And he always forgot his banjo when he'd go out to get drunk. But he never knew that he forgot it. So he would play it. And Uncle Carl's playing, you'd finger his banjo, singing, yes, my baby, yes, and his teeth would flap. Yeah, he lost his teeth one time. Oh, that was a terrible scene. And we just track Uncle Carl. So on this particular night, we got in the car and we drove over to Aunt Minn's house. And my kid brother's yelling and hollering. Every time we go on for a visit, he would throw a fit and lay on the bottom of the floor of the car and kick his shoes off and all that stuff. My mother would just drag him in by his galoshes and just throw him in the back of the car, and he'd lay there and scream. And so we are on our way to Aunt Minn. Well, I'm going to describe to you a giftie. Incidentally, I have seen that same gift in the windows of Salvation Army stores since. But we arrived at Aunt Minn's house, and Aunt Minn is all, you know, she's got her new apron on, and she's beaming, and her store teeth are clicking and clacking away, and the kids, about 28 kids hiding around her feet and all. And she says, now you come on into the living room here. She says, here, now give me your coats. There. Would any of you like some coffee, tea, anything? Tea. Of course, Uncle Carl is out. He's staggering along some distant curbway someplace, up some distant alley. He's out there fist fighting against unseen enemies and singing songs, reading music that wasn't there, and he's playing his banjo that was still in the closet, and he, you know, the whole bit. And and Aunt Minn says, "Come on in now," and she's got the room dark. We go into the living room, and they lived in this little tiny, what they call a St. Louis apartment in Chicago. Have you ever heard of a St. Louis apartment? It was an over and under apartment. Most cities have what they call duplexes, where, you know, one apartment is right next to the other apartment in a single building. That's called a duplex. Well, the St. Louis building is over and under. It's got an apartment on the top, an apartment on the bottom, and it's got outside steps that go to the top building. That's called a St. Louis building. Don't ask me why. That's what it's called. And they lived in this St. Louis apartment, and there was always a lot of trouble about that. They lived on the bottom of the St. Louis apartment. And Uncle Carl always, whenever he'd get tanked, would think that they lived on the top. And he would go staggering up these steps, and he'd try to get into the top apartment. That's another story. I'll tell about that. I'll tell you about the Fauples, the time that he came in and stayed there for 3 days when they were gone. But that's another scene. Uncle Carl, yeah, they didn't know where he was. He was upstairs sleeping in the Fauples. They weren't there. They were in the old country or something. But Uncle Carl always used to come down those stairs, and he'd fall down the stairs, and he'd roll up against the doorway there. And so this night, it was nice and warm. She had the house all heated, and you could smell the coffee going. She was getting ready to entertain us. And yet, like most ladies whose husbands are confirmed drunks, she always pretended that he wasn't. He was always a little sick. She'd say, Carl isn't feeling very well. Yes, he went down to Dr. Slicker's. Well, Dr. Slicker was the bartender at the Bluebird. And That's where he got his medication. And so we arrived this day, and into the living room we go. We're all sitting around there. I remember this so clearly because it was one of those great moments in the family history. It's still talked about. They date things before and after the acquisition of this gift in the saga of Uncle Carl. Well, Uncle Carl had a fantastic fit of conscience, and Christmas came up. New Year's, the whole thing, and Uncle Carl every year, like all drunks or all people who are involved in things like that, they all vaguely say, this year I'm going to go straight. This year it's going to be different. I was so rotten this past year, just so terrible. A rotten person. And so he had scraped together some dough and saved it where nobody really knew, but he had scraped it together and got this gift. We're sitting on Aunt Minn's sofa, and we're all waiting in there, and she comes in with a tray with coffee and cookies and milk and stuff, and she says, now watch. Okay, I'll sit now. Now be quiet. She says, now just wait a minute now. And she goes over to the other side of the room. It's dark. Absolutely, the place is pitch black. It's one thing about St. Louis apartments because the buildings next to them are right up against each other. There's no light comes in. It's black as the ace of spades. And she says, now watch. And she reaches over. Would you give me a little romantic music, please? She reaches over, and you hear a switch. The switch goes on, and instantly, there it is, lighting up the whole end of the room. Uncle Carl had gotten for Aunt Minn an artificial, imitation, synthetic fireplace. And it just lit up there at the end, and it had one of these artificial synthetic grates. And in the grates, there were these little black pieces of glass that looked exactly like coal. Have you ever seen one of those? And they were lit up with a red light inside. And somehow it was some kind of imitation flame that they looked like they were flickering. And we sat there, and Aunt Minn said, a fireplace. Carl got it for us. And my mother said, isn't that beautiful? A real fireplace. And my father says, you can almost feel that it's warm. Isn't that amazing? Looks just like flames. And immediately my kid brother runs over and sticks his finger in there. Wow, wow, look at this. Whoa. And I go over and I look, and all the rest of the kids who are all standing around. And Aunt Minn says, now don't touch it now. That's Carl's Christmas gift. Isn't that beautiful? The artificial, isn't that just wonderful? It has a mantelpiece. Now watch, I'll turn the lights on. And she turned all her bridge lamps on, and on the mantelpiece there was a picture, a dime store gold frame. And out of it, in that, those tinted photographs that you get at the dime store, out of it was looking Uncle Carl in his blue suit. Bright blue. It was electric blue, it lit up there. And his hair was real gold for some reason or other. He had this big grin, and his teeth were white. And Uncle Carl, that was the one day they caught him between drunks. And they took a quick picture of him. And now it's in that frame. And he's looking out from the top of the mantelpiece next to a vase. Now, the vase, by the way, if you're interested, was given to Aunt Minn by my grandmother, who gave this Christmas gift to everybody in the family for years. She would take a pickle jar, a Heinz pickle jar, and she would line it with little pieces of red and green and yellow tissue paper that she had taken from the inside of Christmas card envelopes of the year before. And she would paint little black lines around it, little gold things, and that was the vase. And sticking out of the vase, there were 4 wax peonies reaching for the sky. It was Midwestern beauty in full flower. The artificial fireplace roared. Uncle Carl beamed out of his Woolworth frame. And the 4 wax peonies reached for the sun in the St. Louis apartment. All sat around and drank the coffee, and I drank the milk. My kid brother drank the milk. By the way, it was the only quart of milk they'd had for a month and a half. We ate the fig Newtons and talked about what a beautiful fantastic fireplace this was. And then at 10 o'clock, we got back in the car and drove home. Very good. That's American family life among the peasantry. Oh, of course it is. Let's face it. I mean, this is unrecorded. I never have read anybody write about anything like that in fiction. And we've all lived through it, right, Mario? That kind of thing. I have never seen any of this kind of American life written about or reported as though it never occurred. And there it was. And for years, Aunt Minn had her fireplace. And whenever there was big moments in the family, she never used it to, she didn't want the bulb to burn out. She had an idea if she used it too much, the bulb would burn out and no one would know how to fix it. And so whenever there were moments of high state occasion, like a wedding or a funeral or a big bridge party or something, when they'd all come over to Minn's house and drink coffee or beer, on big, really high moments, Aunt Minn would walk to the other end of the room and she'd throw the switch. And on would come the fireplace. And everyone would say, isn't that just beautiful? Why don't we get one of those? Why don't we just get one of those? And my father would say, gee, sometime we ought to. And then my Aunt Minn would always say the same thing. She'd say, Carl gave that to us on Christmas. I'll never forget. That was a gift from Carl, She used to say that after Carl had left. One time, you want to know what happened to Carl? One night, after Aunt Minn had thrown his teeth, he got his teeth from the relief. He one time came home, he was down at the Bluebird having a great time, and Aunt Minn she was fantastically angry one night, and she took his teeth and threw them down the air shaft. And they never found them. A couple of days later, Uncle Carl was sitting there, and Aunt Minn says, look, I want you to go down to the delicatessen and get 15 cents worth of summer sausage, sliced thin. He said, all right. He was gumming all his words in those days. And he headed out for the store, turned left at the corner of Crawford Avenue and Irving Park, and never came back. Just kept right on going. They say he headed for China. Never was heard from again. And for years, Aunt Minn would say, that's the fireplace that Carl gave us one Christmas. Isn't that beautiful? Just so lovely. And he would look out from the top of that mantelpiece with his blue coat for year on year on year, next to those 4 magnificent wax peonies